Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of these Power Rankings where we're breaking down each team leading up to the season each day, starting from Team 30 all the way down to Team 1. We've covered an abundance of teams already, from the Nets, Wizards, Jazz, Blazers, Bulls, and Pistons, and now we are on our seventh team in this series, which, as you guys can tell from the thumbnail, we're going to be discussing today the Toronto Raptors. And that's right. If you missed our previous videos, go check out the other ones. Well, in this episode, we're going to be looking at the additions, the subtractions, who stayed with this Raptors team, some players I like that fit in with this organization, some players that I don't necessarily think are going to gel right with this system in the future, and my overall record prediction for the Raptors going into this year. Hope you all enjoy this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and let's get into it. And like I've been discussing, the Raptors are a team coming into this with some young upside, some young potential, but ultimately, I don't know, have enough to get into that play-in or playoff hump this off season. Now, they did make some moves, though, that I did like to push this direction of this youth movement, and I still think can strongly push for that in the future. So let's dive in and let's look at these moves that the Raptors did this off season. It's courtesy of ESPN. These are the moves that the Raptors made this offseason. They did bring back three players on this team, two of them being on 5-year extensions, with Manuel quickly returning on a 5-year deal and Scotty Barnes agreeing to a 5-year extension. Two of their three young focal points and pieces that they want to have for the future. Garrett Temple, a veteran, was also brought in on a 1-year deal where I think he'll be some sort of veteran guy in the locker room to help out with this young movement. They also made two additions, bringing in Bruno Fernando in that big man group and making a trade, sending out Jalen McDaniels, who was one of their departures in their log-jammed wing group, for backup guard Davion Mitchell, who has a lot of upside. The other departures that were on this Raptors team was that they waived Muhammad Gay. Gary Trent Jr. was departed in free agency, where he signed a veteran minimum deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. And after a controversial headspace with dealing with Sasha Vezenkov. He initially then decided to go back to Europe and was waived by the Toronto Raptors after a little bit of a headache that they had to deal with this offseason after trading for him alongside Davion Mitchell. So from hearing all that news, from hearing all those reports, let's look at this Raptors team. And like I said, this is courtesy of Spot Track. Shout out to Keith Smith, was a major contributor over on this website. Always updated it, always plugging it. Really, really do appreciate it, Keith. You do a fantastic job, and it's absolutely appreciated over here. But let's look at this roster. Let's look and see, like we mentioned, quickly making one of the most money for this Raptors team. Barrett, the other young focal point, and Scotty Barnes, who is now getting this extension next season, will have a high salary with this squad. But some other players that are atop this list: Bruce Brown Jr., a player who was brought in at the trade deadline, possibly could have gotten moved, didn't get moved. We'll discuss that a little bit more. Jakob Poeltl, player that they gave up their first round pick this season to acquire to make a playoff push. Maybe not been the best case. And Kelly Olynyk, who has been a big focal point for their offense at the end of last season, coming back to Canada, coming back to his home country, but also integrating himself fantastically into that front court. Like I mentioned, there's some other young guys as well: Ochai Agbaji, Grady Dick, their first round pick, and Jacoby Walter, and also some other young talents that they do have on this roster. Jamal Shedwood from the Houston team, Houston Wildcats or Cougars, I believe. I don't necessarily know off the top of my head, but the Houston college basketball program. Jonathan Mogbo was a nice little center. And then looking at their Exhibit 10 days and two-way deals, one name that jumps out to me is Jared Rhoden. Jared Rhoden did attend my alma mater in Seton Hall. I did get to see him play. Now, Rhoden hasn't had the best experience getting into the NBA yet. He's had some struggles as he's a wing that isn't really designed or specifically specialized in one aspect of the ball, offensively or defensively, but he does help and contribute in all aspects of the game. It could be a nice body if he is to mature and grow in a specific aspect to become a dominant player. Now, I do think that Rhoden has some spark, has some life, and is maybe more profiled as a G League guy, but I still think could be nice for the Raptors 905. And let's not also forget the Raptors did also make another signing today. It is not here, but I remember it on the top of my head. They brought back Jahmi'us Ramsey. So for you Raptors fans that do not know or did not know, Jahmi'us Ramsey will fill out your roster at the training camp spot, coming in on a training camp deal at 21 players. He was a two-way with the Raptors last season, went to the Celtics for Summer League, and then wound up going back to the Raptors. Now, I think he's going to be very interesting, very, very skilled player, and someone that I am interested to see with this Raptors team. This Raptors squad, like I said, is combination of some young guys, some older guys, and some young guys that have some potential that we haven't really seen yet. And those are the players that I'm really, really excited to see with this Raptors team. So let's kind of get in and let's discuss some players that I really like with this Raptors team. Some players that I think are going to help out with this culture, and some players that really have to ingrace themselves. And then we'll discuss some players that I necessarily don't think fit in with this Raptors team. Now, when looking at players that I like and dislike, I just want to let you know that with this Raptors team, there are an abundance of players that I do like. I like RJ Barrett. I like Emmanuel Quickly. I like Scotty Barnes. I like this young movement that they're going, and I feel like Scotty can kind of be that player for them. I feel like they all kind of complement each other. I really like how this team has embraced that positionless kind of play with Quickly being able to play one or two, Barrett being able to play two or three, Barnes being able to play two, three, or four. It really allows them to have so many different lineup combinations with, some great coaching from Darko Rajakovic. I can't wait to see what they can kind of bring out this year, but I don't really want to focus on those guys because those are like the main players. So I want to kind of dive in and look at some players kind of behind the scenes, players that I think kind of break out and work for them. And one of those players was acquired via trade with this team, so it kind of gives it away. That is Davion Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Davion Mitchell, when he played at Baylor, had a fantastic, fantastic run, went on to win a championship over there, but got drafted to the Sacramento Kings as a lottery pick, was presented to be this high energy defensive player with this team, and it was kind of a little bit of a weird addition. They already had Tyrese Halliburton. They already had Davion Mitchell now. They already have players in De'Aaron Fox, and it was just a log jammed guard rotation. Now they moved off of Tyrese Halliburton and brought in Domantas Sabonis, but then had Malik Monk, Kevin Herter, and Keon Ellis, and Damian Mitchell, and it's just a log jam of guards and hard for a player to kind of grow out of that. Specifically, a player in Davion Mitchell who is very, very sound on the defensive side of the ball and can hit corner threes here and there and be an offensive player when he needs to occasionally, but isn't the most sound on the offensive ball side of the ball, isn't the best offensive player for this Sacramento Kings team, specifically in a Sacramento team that runs high on energy, pace, and speeding up the process, similar to like an Indiana Pacers team where they're always moving quick, always moving fast. De'Aaron Fox always has the ball in his hands. They're always moving at a high tempo. It's a very, very quick pacing scoring team. It's hard if you're not skilled at that to kind of ingratiate yourself into that offense and be able to stand out and blossom over there. So I think Davion Mitchell kind of needed a new change of scenery, a new place of scenery, and I think Toronto is the perfect spot for him to kind of get that. One, Toronto, like I said, they are young. They are not requiring you to average 20, average 25, play a specific role for their team. They want you to come to their squad, show what you can highlight, show what you can bring. If you can stand out, look good for the squad, they'll keep you long term. If not, they'll bounce off of you, they'll go in a different direction. They'll make it work. That's how Toronto has always been as a franchise. And looking at Davion Mitchell, I think he complements a player in Emmanuel Quickly perfectly as a polar opposite. Emmanuel Quickly is known for his creativity on the offensive side of the floor, being a microwave, heating up, and just scoring, 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 playmaking, being that offensive, just heliocentric player. Davion Mitchell is known for the defensive side of the ball. And even though playing together, they might not necessarily work as they're both very small guards and helping out each other on that side of the floor may not be the best. I think it can work at some aspects, but also having them being one starter and one off the bench is perfect. You need some defense, insert Davion Mitchell. You need some offense, insert a player in Emmanuel Quickly. Kind of utilize that, kind of use that tool. Again, polar opposites at that point guard position really will help to overlap and succumb to those differences if the other player does lack at that point guard position. Both being pretty young players as well, they're both going to motivate each other, push each other, want each other to be better players. I'm excited to see how that guard room can kind of grow together with Davion Mitchell and Emmanuel Quickly. I think those are two perfect guards for a system. And next, we kind of got a two-parter here. We're talking about two players. We're going to be talking about Grady Dick, and we're going to be talking about Ochai Agbaji. Now, going into Grady Dick was selected as a lottery pick last season by the Toronto Raptors and did not really have the greatest summer league or preseason. to kind of showcase his skills for Raptors fans. It ultimately led him being relegated to that G League team, specifically with the Raptors fans and a front office still feeling like they could contend with Siakam and with OG Anunoby still being under roster at the start of last season. But unfortunately, the writing was on the wall clear as day with the Toronto Raptors as it was time to move on from these players and move into a different direction with this franchise, specifically with the Atlantic Division basically ruling the Eastern Conference. So Toronto kind of decided we need to kind of tuck all those players in and throw them out the bag. Went in with Grady Dick after that, and Grady Dick really showcased himself to be that three-level scorer, that playmaker, and that shooting guard that the Raptors saw when they drafted him in that second half of the season. And specifically with getting rid of Gary Trent Jr., who kind of was blocking him at that starting shooting guard position and basically played the same exact role that Grady Dick would be playing for this Raptors team, a 3-and-D legitimate scorer who is going to be a catch and shoot guy for this Raptors squad, not necessarily be your primary scorer. Adds a little bit more size and length than Gary Trent Jr. does at that position. I'm really liking this. And also, I think he can slot in and maybe play that three position a little bit as well. If you want to look at some different lineups, specifically with, Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly having so much versatility alongside Grady Dick, having that, I think, is fantastic. I think he's really going to cement himself to be that type of player and be that replacement for Gary Trent Jr. that the Raptors had last season. I think he's going to be even better for the Raptors than Gary Trent Jr. was. And even though the Raptors lost him basically for nothing, and I think they should have gotten something at least for Gary Trent Jr., I think that Gary Dick is going to be a fine A replacement. Now, going back, talking about another player in Ochai Agbaji, he was also acquired at the trade deadline when they went out and got Kelly Olynyk, bringing in Ochai Agbaji. Now, Agbaji has had some stints with two teams in his career, Cleveland and with Utah, where he hasn't been able to really flourish, get into those systems, really showcase or hone into his skill set. And he's more of a defensive presence guy. He's going to value himself as being a 2/3 in betweener guy who's going to play defense on your best wing, be able to hit the three ball at a decent clip if open, and I think will be able to make an impact as that type of player because this Raptors team, yeah, they have Davion Mitchell off the bench as a key impact defender, but they don't really have that at that wing position. Jonathan Mogul, their rookie, is going to be pretty solid at the 2-3, but I think Ochai Agbaji, similar to a player like Chris Duarte with the Chicago Bulls, which if you missed that video, go check that one out where we broke them down. I think they can kind of play similar roles for that second unit as being just an open three-point shooter, a pretty solid defender, and just a scrappy, hard-nosed guy for this Raptors team, and someone that people are going to buy into, want to believe in. Like I said, Abaji played at Kansas at that 2-3 kind of position, a little bit of a tweener kind of here in at the NBA as well. I think he fits best at that two as a very good defensive two. And like I said, for Chris Duarte, if they can get their rebounds up, if they can get their defense up, if they can turn into basically Josh Hart 2.0s, that's what you want to see from players like this, especially like in the NBA. I think that they can hit that ceiling, possibly even get to there for these types of teams. And I think Abaji could be one of those types of pieces for the Raptors, where in a couple of years, if you see him really honing on the rebounding, the defensive side of the ball, and hitting that three at an efficient clip, he's going to be viewed as a very versatile guy for this Raptors team or for any team for him in the future. But let's talk about some players that I'm not the highest on for this Raptors team. Some players that I don't really like their fit with this Raptors team. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a picture of them playing together, and I couldn't find a picture of them going horizontal. So you're gonna have to deal with the vertical picture. But it is Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher, who are both going up against each other on this picture. So talking about Bruce Brown, obviously Brown was brought in as part of the Pascal Siakam deal, coming in over from Indiana, and was basically set to be traded and be flipped for another piece, regardless if it was a first round pick to New York, just a younger piece for Toronto, and it just never happened. And then Bruce Brown just wasn't happy, wasn't playing his best. The Raptors started falling off. He didn't want to be there. He's still there because he obviously was going to pick up his $22 million player option, and he's still stuck in Toronto. No trade has been really negotiated. He has a little bit of ankle soreness that he's coming into training camp with. Just not the greatest signs for the Raptors. Bruce Brown being a Massachusetts native alongside myself, I am very, very happy for Bruce Brown, wishing him nothing but the best of luck in his career. But unfortunately, I just don't think the Raptors are the best fit for him. He really, really seems to showcase his skills and blossom when he's utilized as a 3-4, coming off that bench and playing a high impact bench role. I think he can be a starter in the league, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to value him at his best. I think if he's playing 18 to 20 minutes off your bench and being a high sixth, seventh man off your high impact sixth, seventh man off your team, that's going to do you a lot more than he is as a starter. And I think he can contribute to that your team in those similar ways. Like I said, with the Nets, with the Nuggets, he kind of played that role and was very, very fantastic in it. Now, there's going to be an abundance of teams that I think will like to take him at the $22 million price tag. I don't know how many will want to, but since it's a 1 year deal, maybe they take it, buy in it, and then next year kind of offer him some long-term security, but you're not getting no balloon contract, you're not getting no 22 million, and we'll figure something out. I think that's a direction that could be worked for Bruce Brown, and I think it's possible for a player like him to get traded. Like I said, it's not a player I dislike, it's just a player that I don't really think fits in with the direction of the team. And similarly with Chris Boucher, he's a player that's been thrown around the trade block for numerous, most of last season at least with this Raptors team, was unable to get moved due to his contract with the CBA restrictions of second apron teams not being able to trade for him. Those are the teams that would only really want him. I don't necessarily know. Boucher's kind of again a tweener position. Play the Raptors have a lot of these guys that can play multiple positions, which is nice for their positionless basketball. But for a player like Chris Boucher, who kind of plays that 4-5 position, when you already have Scotty Barnes, Jakob Kelly Olynyk, and then you have young guys that you want to bring up like Jonathan Mogbo and other players like that, it's very not Jonathan Mogbo. Excuse me. Um, yeah, Jonathan Momo. Sorry. Yes, Jonathan Momo. When you want to have players like that come up, it is very difficult for them to kind of grow and develop. So ultimately, Boucher, I think, should get moved. No Raptors fans want him to get moved. I don't necessarily know if he'll get moved, but I want him to get moved. Bruce Brown, I want to get moved. Just go into a different team. Boucher maybe help out a front court on another's team. Bruce Brown, I think, definitely could. Now, getting to the Raptors prediction here, looking at their record, 29-53 is going to be my prediction for the Raptors here. Finishing better than 2 games on the Pistons and coming in, I believe, as the 7th team being ranked on these power rankings list. I do think that they are going to fall short of the plan. They do have some young players, they do have some young talent. Like I said, their big three and quickly Barrett and Barnes is something to be interesting to look at. Grady Dick, Davion Mitchell, Ochai Abaji, Jacoby Walter, Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown, Jakob they all are. That sounds like a very solid team. I necessarily just don't know if they're all going to be here by the end of the season. I don't know if they're all going to be healthy. I don't know if they're all going to want to push for a playoff push, and we'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree? Think the Raptors are too high, too low? Where would you place them on your rankings? Do you agree with my analyzations? Do you disagree? Drop down your thoughts down below. I appreciate you all for tuning in, watching these videos. It really does mean a lot. Like I said, I've restarted this channel, trying to get it going up again, and you guys have just been absolutely killing it, showing your love, showing your support. Really does mean the world to me. Once again, I'm Bruce Velez. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode here on Switch City, where we broke down the Toronto Raptors. Catch you guys tomorrow in the next Power Rankings. We'll be going over the next team. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out.